There's a song you skipped the first time you heard it. You didn't hate it, it just didn't land. And then weeks later, you hear it again. And this time, it works. The melody felt right. The timing makes sense. You knew what was coming next. Now you don't skip it. In fact, you might even love that song. And that's strange, because the song didn't change. So what did? We tend to think of music as something we immediately recognize as good or bad, a reaction, a preference, a feeling. But music isn't just something we hear, it's something we learn. The first time you hear a new song, your brain's doing more work than you realize. It's trying to predict the future. Not in a philosophical sense, in a mechanical one. When will the beat land? Where will the melody go? When will the tension resolve? Your brain's constantly building expectations about what should happen next, and when it can't, the music feels wrong. Not because it is wrong, just because it's unfamiliar. There's an idea in neuroscience called predictive processing. The basic idea is simple. Your brain's always trying to reduce uncertainty. It builds models of the world so it can predict what happens next. Walking, speaking, catching a ball, all of it depends on prediction. Music just makes this process visible. Every style of music teaches you rules. Certain chords lead to certain others. Rhythms repeat in expected ways. Melodies rise and fall according to patterns you've heard before. When you already know those rules, listening feels effortless. And when you don't, it feels confusing. And confusion rarely feels good. So when people say they don't like a song on the first listen, what they often mean is, my brain doesn't understand this yet. So this is why songs grow on us. Repetition isn't just exposure, it's learning. Each time you hear a song, your brain updates its predictions. Patterns become clearer, surprises become expected. Then something interesting happens. When your brain correctly predicts what comes next, it rewards itself. Not because the music objectively improved, but because the prediction succeeded. Part of musical pleasure comes from being right. This is why choruses feel satisfying, drops feel powerful, why a returning melody can feel emotional. Recognition feels good. The song didn't change, but your model of it did. You can actually feel this happening. Imagine a rhythm repeating over and over. Your brain locks onto it. Now imagine that beat disappears for just a moment. When it comes back, it feels stronger than before, not because it's louder, because your expectation was interrupted, but then fulfilled. And that small tension, the brief uncertainty, that's where much of musical emotion lives. Music is constantly balancing prediction and surprise. If it's too predictable, it becomes boring. Too unpredictable, and it's just noise. The music that lasts lives right in between. It's familiar enough to follow. It's unfamiliar enough to keep learning from. So this creates a strange contradiction. We say that we want new music, but our brains prefer familiar patterns. New sounds often feel uncomfortable at first because they require effort. Jazz once sounded chaotic to listeners who didn't understand the structure. Electronic music once sounded artificial. Distortion was once just noise. Over time, people learned how to hear these sounds, and once learned, they stopped sounding strange. Every generation eventually becomes comfortable with what once felt wrong, not because the music softened, because the listeners adapted. Modern listening changed something important. For most of history, music required patience. You owned what you owned. You listened to it repeatedly. Sometimes you didn't have a choice. Songs had time to make sense. But now, music competes with everything else for attention. So if something doesn't work immediately, it gets skipped. Algorithms learn this behavior, and they give us music that feels instantly familiar. Music that requires no adjustment. Music that feels good. something subtle gets lost there. It's the friction. Because the friction's where the discovery happens. The songs that stay with us the longest are often the ones that didn't make sense right away. The ones that slowly revealed themselves over time. You think about the music that lasted in your life, there's a good chance that it confused you at first. Maybe the structure just felt unusual. Maybe the harmony didn't resolve when you expected it to. Maybe it just felt different. Over time, something clicked. Once it did, the song felt deeper than the ones that you understood immediately. It's because your brain wasn't just hearing it anymore. Your brain learned it. Music isn't just sound organized in time. It's understanding. So maybe the uncomfortable idea is this. We don't fall in love with music because it's new. We fall in love with it when it stops being new. When something unfamiliar becomes predictable, when chaos becomes pattern,